Your rental has been sitting empty for 3 weeks. You listed it on a Friday because that's when the unit was ready. You priced it competitively. You took decent photos. And now you're refreshing Zillow every morning watching the view count crawl. Here's what nobody told you. The day you posted that listing cost you more than a bad tenant ever would. Not because your property is wrong. Not because your price is wrong. Because you handed the algorithm a loaded gun and pointed it at your own noi. We analyzed 1,200 Bay Area and SoCal listings, and the data is uncomfortably clear. Self-managing landlords who list at the wrong time are absorbing an average of 18 extra vacant days per turn. At California's median rent, that's $1,404 vanishing from your pocket every single time you re-rent a unit. Let's fix that permanently. Starting right now, most landlords think about vacancy in vague terms. Oh, it'll rent eventually. That cognitive fuzziness is costing you real money with a real price tag you can calculate on a napkin in 30 seconds. California's median asking rent right now sits at approximately $2,350 per month. Divide that by 30 days and your daily carrying cost, just from lost rent before you factor in mortgage, insurance, utilities, and your time, is $78.33 per vacant day. 18 days at that rate is $1,410. Round down to $1,404 to be conservative. That's not a rounding error. That's not an abstraction. That is a rent check you wrote to no one. Now scale that. If you self-manage 5 units and each turns once every 2 years on average, you're burning through $3,510 every single year purely from mistimed listings, before a single thing goes wrong with a tenant. And that's the median. If you're managing in San Jose, Oakland, or anywhere in coastal SoCal, your daily vacancy cost is higher. A $3,200 unit sits empty at $106 per day. 18 extra days there is $1,908 per turn. Here's what makes this infuriating. Unlike a bad tenant, a bad roof, or a code violation, mistimed listing is completely, immediately, and costlessly correctable. You don't need a contractor. You don't need an attorney. You need a calendar and about 45 minutes of prep work. But before you can use timing as a weapon, you need to understand why the weapon exists. And that means understanding how Zillow and Apartments.com actually decide who sees your listing. Now here's where it gets interesting, and a little maddening if you've been listing on Fridays. Zillow assigns every new rental listing what's effectively a new badge, a freshness signal that drives between 60 and 70% of total listing views in the first 72 hours. This isn't speculation. Zillow's own rental traffic data and third-party studies of ILS, Internet Listing Service, behavior consistently show that new listings spike hard in the first 3 days and then decay exponentially. After 72 hours, your listing is already competing against everything else in the feed, and the algorithm is sorting by factors you cannot control: recency, engagement signals, and match scores built from user search history. So here's the brutal math of a Friday listing. You go live Friday at noon. Your 72-hour peak window runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Who is actively searching for rentals on the weekend? Some people, sure. But serious applicants, dual-income households, young professionals relocating for work, people with a specific move-in date, are not doing their primary rental research on Saturday morning. Weekend searches skew toward casual browsers who are not ready to apply. They're daydreaming, not deciding. By Monday morning, when your serious searchers are back at their desks opening Zillow during their lunch break, your listing is already 72 hours old. The freshness badge has expired. You're now buried under every listing that went live Monday through Thursday of that week. You didn't just miss the wave. You paddled out after it already broke. Apartments.com operates on a similar freshness first ranking logic. Their algorithm surfaces new listings aggressively in the first few days, particularly to users whose saved search criteria match your unit. Once that window closes, you're essentially playing organic SEO against listings that launched more recently. And Craigslist, still relevant in many California markets, particularly for working-class housing, literally ranks by post time with zero algorithmic nuance. Post on Friday, get buried by Monday. The compounding effect is what kills you. Low early views mean low early applications. Low early applications means you start discounting either the rent or your screening standards to fill the unit. That desperation discount, even $50 per month, costs you $600 per year for the entire lease term. On a 2-year lease, that's $1,200 gone, on top of your $1,404 vacancy tax, from a single mistimed listing. But wait, there's a catch. Knowing that early week listings outperform doesn't tell you which day and which hour, and the difference between Tuesday and Monday is actually meaningful. Peak leasing season in California runs roughly April through August, with a secondary surge in January tied to job transitions and lease expirations. During these windows, listing timing matters most because you're competing hardest. More inventory means the algorithm has to make harder choices about who gets surfaced. The statistically optimal launch window is Tuesday between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. local time. Here's why Tuesday specifically. Monday is the day when serious renters are recovering from weekend browsing and compiling their actual shortlist. They're refining saved searches, not executing on them. Tuesday is when they act. The post-work browse surge between 4 and 6 p.m. catches commuters on transit, remote workers closing their laptops, and anyone who's been mentally chewing on their housing decision all day. Your listing goes live at 5 p.m. Tuesday with a fresh badge. It gets indexed and surfaced by Tuesday evening. It sits at peak freshness for Wednesday's lunch hour search spike, which is consistently one of the highest engagement windows across rental platforms. By Thursday, you've already generated your first wave of qualified inquiries, and you have a full business day to respond before the weekend. Contrast that with a Friday listing, which generates weekend tire kickers, and then competes from behind for the entire following week. Now, and this is non-negotiable, the launch window only works if you are ready to receive applications the moment you go live. Your pre-list checklist must be complete before you publish. Your application link has to be live and functional. Use a platform like Zillow Rental Manager, TurboTenant, or Avail. California landlords need a compliant application process that does not run afoul of fair housing requirements, and a cobbled-together Google form is a liability waiting to happen. Your ID verification process needs to be defined before your first inquiry hits. Under California Civil Code, your screening criteria must be applied consistently. Document them before you start, not after. Your lease template should be finalized and ready to send. DocuSign or a similar e-signature platform eliminates the 48-hour back and forth that bleeds your best applicants to faster landlords. If you go live Tuesday at 5 p.m. and someone submits a serious application at 8 p.m., you need to be responding by Wednesday morning, not Wednesday afternoon, not Thursday when you get around to it, Wednesday morning. Timing gets you in front of eyeballs. What they see in the first 3 seconds determines whether they click or scroll. Your lead photo is the single highest leverage pixel on your entire listing. It needs to be your largest, brightest, most architecturally compelling shot, typically the living room or kitchen, taken with a wide-angle lens in natural daylight. Listings with professional or high-quality photos receive 2x the inquiry rate compared to smartphone snapshots. And on Zillow, your thumbnail image is the entire first impression before someone even reads your price. Dark photos, cluttered staging, and fish-eyed distortion without context are conversion killers. You have one chance at a first impression in a competitive feed. Now here's a contrarian take that most landlords resist. Price your listing at a round number anchor that sits just below psychological thresholds. If market rent for your unit is $2,400, list at $2,350 or even $2,375. Not $2,400 and certainly not $2,425. The perceived value gap between $2,350 and $2,400 is far larger in an applicant's mind than the actual $50. You're not discounting. You're anchoring, and anchoring correctly means you receive more applications, which means you have the negotiating leverage to hold your price or choose the stronger applicant rather than the first one who shows up. For copy sequencing, your listing description should answer the applicant's 3 unconscious questions in order. Can I afford this, and is it available when I need it? Does it have what I actually need? Do I want to live here? Lead with availability date, rent, and deposit. Follow with concrete features, square footage, bedroom count, parking, laundry. Close with neighborhood and lifestyle language. Most landlords write these in reverse order and bury the logistical information at the bottom where qualified applicants have already stopped reading. Peak interest is perishable. That's the single most important sentence in this entire script. A qualified applicant who inquires on your listing Tuesday evening is simultaneously touring 3 to 5 comparable units. They have a spreadsheet. They have a move-in deadline. They are not waiting for you to get your act together over the weekend. You have a 72-hour window from the moment of peak interest to convert that inquiry into a signed lease, and the clock starts the second they message you. Your response protocol during this window needs to be systematized, not improvised. within 2 hours of an inquiry. Send a templated acknowledgement that confirms availability, provides your application link, and specifies your next available showing time. Within 24 hours of a completed application, complete your screening, make your decision, and communicate it. California law requires you to provide a copy of the Consumer Credit Report if you charge a screening fee, and it caps that fee at the actual cost of the report plus a reasonable administrative charge, currently indexed to inflation. So verify the current cap before you collect anything. Do not sit on completed applications for 48 hours because you're waiting to see if something better comes in. The best applicant is not waiting for you. If you use a showing schedule, concentrate your showings on Wednesday and Thursday during your launch week. Group showings, scheduling multiple prospects at overlapping times, create legitimate social proof. When a prospective tenant sees 2 other people also touring the unit, scarcity becomes real and visceral, not manufactured. This is not manipulation. This is accurate communication of market demand. Execute a signed lease with e-signature within 24 hours of verbal commitment. Every hour between yes and signature is an hour where your best applicant is still technically available to the next landlord who moves faster. Recap: here's what you're taking away from this. Every unnecessary vacant day at California's median rent costs you $78. 18 avoidable days is $1,404 per turn. And that number is almost entirely driven by timing decisions you make before you ever write a single word of your listing. Zillow's freshness window drives 60 to 70% of your listing's total views in the first 72 hours. Wasting that window on a weekend is not a minor inefficiency. It is a self-inflicted vacancy tax. Tuesday between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. is your launch window. Build your checklist, have your application system ready, and go live when the audience is actually there. Photos, pricing anchors, and copy sequencing are not cosmetic details. They are conversion architecture that determines whether your peak traffic window produces applicants or just views. And once peak interest arrives, you have 72 hours before it evaporates. Your response protocol is not optional. Your best applicant is also your most impatient one. The mistake most landlords make is treating listing as the finish line. It's actually the starting gun. And if you're not ready when you pull the trigger, you're running the race alone, powered by LeaseBase intelligence.